Good morning and welcome to another sort of writing vlog. This one is going to be different though because I'm officially moving on to a step that I have never done: beta reading. I have had people read my work many times before, so that sensation is not new at all, but this is my first time doing kind of beta reading as it is, not like a creative writing workshop, not sharing it with family and friends, but actually, getting people who I don't know, who have various backgrounds and, reading backgrounds specifically, and they're gonna read my book and tell me what they think of my book, which is just terrifying. At this point, I am very much at the beginning of the process. I only have 2 people so far, and one person I've only sent the first couple of chapters, so we're gonna see if she's interested in continuing with beta reading. I really kind of framed it as very much kind of a trial at the beginning for both people involved, for me and for the person potentially beta reading. So I'm not sure if the second person is gonna work out because I haven't heard back from them yet. It's not been super long, so I'm not worried about it, but I just haven't heard back yet. But the other person has actually read several chapters so far, and I'm about to send her chapters 6 through 10, so it's going really well so far. I really wanted to record the moment I sent those first couple chapters to my very first beta reader, but unfortunately I did not. I was a bit of a mess, to be honest. I was very nervous. Again, not because I haven't had people read my work before. I've even had people I don't know very well read my work in writing workshops and things, but it still feels a bit different. And also I think that this is different because it's something I've written and I love and I hold very dear to me, and I want to make it really good. Like, I really have hope for this. This book I've spent so much time with, and these people, these characters I've made, this world, it's very dear to me. So of course, it's not that I don't want to get negative feedback. In fact, I want the negative feedback because I know that there's progress that needs to be made, and if no one tells me where they're kind of being confused or lost, or what they're not liking or liking, if I don't know that, then I can't make it better. So actually I'm very excited to get some negative feedback, but there's always that fear that something will really hit home, someone won't like something you really wanted them to like, or something like that. So it's still a bit nerve-wracking. So I can officially say it's going very well so far, and I just hope that it continues to go this well. And I'm also hoping I can find 1 or 2 more beta readers. Hopefully the second person will also want to continue to read, and that will be great. But 1 or 2 others maybe. I think maybe actually 3 is probably a good place to start. I feel like that would be a nice number to know, if 2 people found something that they didn't like or really did like, it gives me a little bit more data to work with. Or if, even more, if all 3 were kind of aligned on something, that would definitely give me a bit more of a, I don't want to say reliable, because it's not like one person's feedback is not reliable, but it does kind of start to seem a little bit less like a personal opinion and more like an actual problem or an actual strength if multiple people kind of point it out. So I think 3 would be good to kind of balance out, each of the criticisms or the critiques, and then I can do some more revisions, and then I can send it off for beta reading part 2. But I'm definitely getting ahead of myself there because I haven't even finished beta reading round 1. I'm gonna go top up my coffee. Another thing that I am seriously thinking about, so it is March 11th today that I'm recording this, and I am thinking about potentially attempting Camp NaNoWriMo. My history with NaNoWriMo is a little bit scattered. I have attempted it, I guess I've made a good attempt once, but typically November is a terrible month for me, especially in the job that I'm in now, where the fall is our absolute most busy, stressful. So I've never really properly done NaNoWriMo in November. With the pandemic, I'm not planning any, travel or anything like that. Normally I will do some sort of trip in March or April and take a few days off work. But in this case, I've taken some days off just at the end of March and in April. But obviously I'm not gonna be traveling for those vacation days like I normally would be. So I'm thinking about trying Camp NaNoWriMo because I am gonna have a bit of time off work. And if I'm not mistaken, Camp Nano, you typically set your own writing goals. And I don't think I'll set my goal for 50K because I'm not a hugely fast writer, and I also kind of want to outline, but I'm thinking about starting a new project for that. I will talk more on that later, but for the moment I have kind of some very basic premise points, and I'm thinking about writing it within the same world as my current work in progress that I'm having beta read. For now I'm going to drink my coffee and get to work. I think I might have my 3rd beta reader. Please don't mind the random construction noises. it's still happening outside my apartment, unfortunately. I wanted to film a quick update about beta readers because I have a little bit of news. So I'm gonna start actually with the first beta reader again. So I had mentioned that I had a first beta reader who was already a couple of batches, I think, already in to the book, and she is just about done with the book. And I gotta say, I am so nervous for her to finish. Those final scenes, like how you wrap up a story, are so important, and they're also one of the hardest things to judge as a writer, because you know you're building towards them. You know what's gonna happen, you know how it's all gonna come together, and of course you do all the work, you know, with the drafting of how exactly you're going to have it happen. But overall, you still know what's gonna happen. Like, you know how to predict your own novel, I hope. At least by the time you have a draft or two. But I don't actually know how this is gonna read as a reader. I don't know if the promises that I made earlier in the draft are actually going to be fulfilled in the end. And I don't know if the end is going to be satisfying, or it's gonna wrap up everything that needs to wrap up. It's so nerve-wracking to know that I have a beta reader getting so close to that, but I'm very excited to see what she's going to say. She's had really great feedback for me so far, so I trust that I'll also get really good feedback on the climactic scenes, the wrap up, and just the overall book. So the second beta reader that I mentioned in my first clip is on board. I'm not like guaranteeing that all these beta readers will read till the end, but I have at least the second beta reader is on another batch of chapters. And then I got a request from a third beta reader, which would be amazing if she does want to continue with the book, and if all three of these beta readers want to read it all the way through. But even if, you know, these second and third beta readers only read a quarter of the book or only read half of the book, that would also be amazing because it would give me some very valuable feedback on the story development, at least. Car's talking to me. I don't know if he's cheering me on or yelling at me, but it's Paris, so he's probably yelling at me. Overall, beta reading is going really well, I would say, so far. Like I said, it's the first time I'm officially doing beta reading. Construction. I have gotten some really valuable feedback when it comes to things that are working. I've also gotten some very valuable feedback on things that are not working so well, or things that maybe are missing or don't quite connect and make sense as they should, which is exactly what I wanted from beta readers and exactly what every writer needs to hear, because sometimes, like I've said before, things are in your head and they just do not make it to the page. And other times, because you do know that ending of your story, you know where it's going, sometimes things can be a little bit forced without intending to and without you even noticing, because you know that these things have to work together to create this end point. And from a reader perspective, it doesn't always mesh. So there haven't been any huge issues that have been pointed out to me, like crux of the story not making sense, but there have been some things that are definitely going to keep me busy with another bit of revisions. So I am gonna start doing a little bit of revisions here and there. Nothing grandiose, like nothing huge, because I know that I should wait, and one beta reader's opinion is not necessarily the, you know, gold standard. It's just one reader's opinion, and ultimately there's gonna be multiple different types of readers who are ideally going to be reading this book. But the things that I'm thinking about are things that I also wholeheartedly agree with, things that I've read in her commentary, and it's just been like a light bulb. So that's my little beta reader update for the time being. Hopefully when I turn my camera on again, I will have some more good news in terms of progress. And something that I forgot to mention, I will tack on really quickly here, and I'll talk about it more later. I have finally started to read Save the Cat Writes a Novel. This has been recommended to me so many times. I've seen everybody talking about it on AuthorTube. I feel like everyone's read it. So far, I have barely scratched the surface, as you can see, and I'm rocking my Prince Caspian bookmark, which I still have from I don't know how many years ago. Already, I really like it, and already it's kind of given me some things to think about in maybe re-beat sheeting my novel, this work in progress that I've been talking about, and certainly as I'm drafting my next book, as I'm outlining, which I will hopefully start doing very soon, I'm definitely going to be following along with this and giving it a shot. With all that being said, I am going to get back to work. I'm probably gonna make myself some tea, maybe some coffee. I probably should opt for tea, but I really want coffee. And I will talk to you again very soon. Good morning. I am starting the day with some coffee and some novel edits because yes, I am doing a little bit of editing. Also, I have new glasses. This is the very first video clip of any sort that I'm recording with my new glasses. I'm so excited. I just got them a couple days ago. So as I said, I have not yet gotten full feedback yet from my beta readers. The beta reader who had been reading super quickly had some other stuff come up, so it's just going a little bit slower than before, but I am just about to send her the final chapters. The last excerpt that I've picked out is a little bit longer than the others. My idea going into this was definitely to send excerpts at a time, not the complete book. I had heard a lot of things, I've read, and I've watched lots of videos from other author tubers who have recommended this for a few different reasons. One being, obviously, there's always the danger that someone is going to just ask for your book because they either want something free or they potentially would want to steal your work or something. It's unusual, but it can happen, and this just kind of increases the odds of it happening if you just send the entire novel to a stranger who you don't know. The other reason why I have heard that this is a recommended way is just so you can have better feedback. And so your beta doesn't feel like they need to be doing these sort of checkpoints themselves as they're reading. It's not supernatural for a reader to stop at various points and evaluate, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about this? You kind of just read and you have that in your head, but you don't necessarily know how to communicate that or when to communicate that. So I really wanted to get like bite by bite, how is this working? How are you feeling at this point in the novel? What do you think about this new thing that was introduced or this new person who was introduced? So I broke it down into several chunks, and now I'm about to send the last chunk, and it's a bit longer because I decided to keep the entire climactic scenes and the wrap up together. This was something I thought about quite a bit. I don't have a ton of wrap up, which is kind of the main reason why I thought, or the first reason I should say, the first reason I thought I should keep them together, because the wrap up would be such a short excerpt after the climactic scenes altogether. But also I feel like these need to be, you at least need to have the option of reading them together. Me personally as a reader, I always read those together. Normally once I get to that point in the book, I kind of just sit down, I reserve myself an hour or two or more, however long those scenes are, and I read them all together. And I don't like to stop, because once you kind of rush into that climax, you want to kind of know what's going to happen or how is it going to unfold, and often the climax kind of leaves you with some questions about how things happened, especially if it's like a battle or something. You really want to see that aftermath. So I thought for my beta readers, yes, there's going to be some people who either want to stop between those scenes or have to stop because of time constraints, but I want them to have the option of reading them together if they so choose, and if they want to kind of read those together and absorb all of that at once. So this morning I am about to send off those final chapters to one of my beta readers, and then I also have a couple of new chapters to send my 2 other beta readers. So this is great. I'm super excited. I told you that I was also revising, but I will reiterate that I'm doing this very cautiously. I do want to be very careful and cautious going into this, not just to change on a whim. That's something that I also talked about just in revising in general. Even when it's my whim and it's not someone else's opinion, it's easy sometimes to change things on a whim when you get a cool idea and you're like, oh, this needs to change now, and then you change it. However, the changes that I'm making right now are actually things that, as I was reading the feedback, I was thinking in my head, yes. I told you in my revisions that one of the things I was working on was the character development of my protagonist, because I felt like there were maybe moments when it wasn't quite clear either to me or in the book, you know, to the reader. I was challenging myself because her style of seeing the story and moving through the story is very much internal. She has a lot of thoughts and feelings about things, very strong, but then she doesn't say a lot of them, and that's very different from how basically all of my protagonists have been in the past. They've been a little bit more willing to open their mouth and blurt it out, and she's very much not. Unless she's with people she really knows well. Like, there are certain circumstances, and I'm trying to make that very clear, where it doesn't feel random when she does speak up and when she doesn't speak up. One piece of feedback that I've gotten from more than one beta reader is that the opening scenes actually lack some internal monologue, some sort of internal explanation as to what she's seeing. There's a lot of description. Like, I was very careful in how I described things. I'm writing in third person, but it's limited through Eliana's perspective. So everything that she's seeing, everything that's being described is definitely from her perspective still. And I worked really hard to make that specific and intentional. What I didn't do as much of is actual internal thoughts, which, you know, not necessarily like, you know, in italics and exactly the words that are going through her head, but a little bit more of how she's thinking and feeling and what she's thinking specifically. There was just a bit of context, I think, internal, like in her head context, that the reader needed to feel like they really are coming from her perspective. And I realized it as soon as it was pointed out to me, even the first time, but then the second and third time, some of these things were kind of, you know, very similar things were noticed in those opening scenes. I realized, yes, this is absolutely something that I need to fix. This is something I need to work on. So I'm doing that because I know it's something that becomes more necessary later in the book. Some people have said that as they've kept reading, it does get, you know, better. It does get more explicit in what Eliana is thinking and feeling. It's just kind of those opening scenes where I think I focused a little bit too much on description and making it super, super tight, which is great. You know, having very tight prose is good and it's what I want in my book, but also you can't sacrifice a little bit of, you know, internal thoughts and feelings as well. There were a couple questions on world building early on in the chapters, and I'm still kind of deciding if I want to address those. Some people had some questions about the world quite early on, and I don't know if those answers are going to be better off where I've put them, or if I should include some things a bit earlier. I really try to avoid info dumping. That's one of the biggest and easiest things to fall into when you have fantasy, and I specifically kind of fought against that, but I also don't want to make the reader feel like they're being stranded and kind of being thrown into this new world without proper context. For those, I'm really just making notes in the document, you know, maybe add this here, maybe explain this a bit more here, but I'm not touching that just yet. I'm gonna wait until more people have a bit more context of the story, more people have read further, and then see kind of what they think about when I chose to reveal certain details, or if I chose to reveal certain details. With all that being said, I am going to wrap up this vlog. I think I've talked for a very long time. This is probably gonna be maybe a bit of a long video unless I manage to cut it down fairly successfully, but I will try to keep it somewhat succinct. I was kind of thinking that this vlog would get me through the first beta read of my full book, but I am just gonna cut it here because I don't know how many days it's gonna take before I kind of have that feedback. But I will do another writing vlog that will include some more beta feedback, and it'll also include some revisions maybe that I'm doing based on that beta feedback, and maybe based on just what I am doing as well. Don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and be sure to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more writing vlogs and more bookish content. Thanks so much for watching, and I will talk to you very soon in another writing video.